Excellent. So, another talk. Yesterday I did promise I would say a little bit more about insight and how it works. And as I teach this meditation, I always say there's two parts to insight. First of all, the insight into how to meditate, and the other one, the insight into Dhamma. The insight in how to meditate is when instead of using willpower to try and keep the mind still, we use wisdom power. And wisdom power is always more effective than willpower. Willpower is like you come across a brick wall in your meditation and you keep banging your head against the brick wall. All you ever get is headache. Instead, we stand back and find out what is the real problem. And if you can stand back from the brick wall rather than keep banging your head against it, you'll find a couple of feet to the right, there's a door, and a couple of meters to the left, there's a ladder to go over it. You don't need to keep banging your head against these walls. There's a way around them. The way around them is called wisdom. Now I'm sure that what I've taught so far, many of you may find one of the biggest problems is thinking too much. Because as human beings, we're always thinking. And even when we're not thinking, we're thinking about thinking. which means that our mind never stops. So, instead of using willpower and trying to stop the mind from thinking, instead we use wisdom power. Why does the mind think anyway? Number one is because it doesn't know any difference. Oh, the whole life, the only thing you've ever noticed are thoughts. So the first exercise today to teach you how to use wisdom power to overcome thinking is a little exercise to notice the space between the thoughts. Now, in order to explain what I mean, I perform this little exercise for you. And as I am speaking, I want you not just to be aware of my words, but I also want you to be mindful of what's happening inside of you as I am speaking. Because as I am speaking, you may begin to notice that there are some spaces between my words. In those gaps between my words, what was happening inside of your mind? You were aware and silent. There wasn't a thought going on in your mind because you never knew when I was going to start speaking again. It's a little meditating teacher's trick. There it was again. Silent awareness. Now this is a use of wisdom power. You notice what silence is. You recognize it. Once you recognize it, you go to the next stage, which I call you become familiar with silence. There it is again. Once you become familiar with it, you go to the last stage, is where you're at ease with the silence. It's just like when you start a new job. You go to a new office. The first day, you don't even recognize the way to the toilets. You don't recognize where the coffee machine is. You don't recognize anything because it's your first day. After a few days, you become familiar with the office and the people there. And after a few months, it becomes like a second home to you. You're at ease, you can relax there. And psychologically, we always go through those three stages where we see someone new, we do something new, or especially when we meditate, we have to recognize what we mean by a silent mind which isn't thinking. We have to become familiar with it. Once we become familiar with it, we become at ease with it. Which means we don't interfere with it anymore. We can just let silence be. Once you can let silence be, you don't need to give it a name. You don't need to know silence, silence, silence. Otherwise it's not silent anymore. You're noting, you're thinking, you're giving things a name. So instead, we let silence be. And the wonderful thing, after a little while, once you recognize silence, you're familiar with it, and you get at ease with it, it becomes delightful. There's nothing that's delightful as silence and stillness. I remember many years ago, when I visited our monasteries in England, and I was a very stupid monk. I went to England in January and February. Do not go to England in January and February. It's depressing and it's freezing. When I was there, they had a cold spell, minus 26 degrees. Sometimes, and this is not an exaggeration, one monk made himself a cup of tea, boiling water. He went to the toilet just to urinate. When he came back, his tea was frozen solid. That's cold. All of those of you with little pieces of cloth around your shoulders, you will freeze to death if you went to England at that time of year. But I was born in England. You know, if you actually open up my robe over here, you can see a little sign, made in England. But even for me it was very cold. But because I was visiting, and what I said yesterday, if you're at home and you have to do work, if you're visiting, you're free. So it was early in the morning, after breakfast, I had no duties. So I decided to go for a walk in the forest in the early morning. It was so cold that no other person was around in the forest. Everyone was inside with their heaters on. There's only mad monks and Englishmen who go out at that time of the day when it's so cold. But all the animals were hibernating. There were no birds in the sky, no animals in the forest, only me. And it was magical. All I could hear is the crunch of the snow under my feet. And when I stopped, the whole world stopped. It was totally silent, absolutely still. Nothing moved. Wow, that was amazing. And so I know stillness. I know peace and silence so much that when they say silence is golden, it is worth much more than that. Not a thought in the mind, no business to be done. Wow, that is so beautiful. It's such a rest for your poor brain. In Malaysia, as many other developed countries in the world, your brain has to work so hard. In fact, I often thought of starting a new society. We do have the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. We have the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. I want to start a society for the prevention of cruelty to brains. Don't be so cruel to your poor brain by making it work 24/7. Give it a break and learn how to be silent. Now this is using wisdom now. Once you recognize what silence is, or once you value silence, and see how important it is, how beautiful it is, then you don't get afraid of silence. One of the reasons why people can't stop thinking is because they are afraid of silence. They just don't know what to do with it. They're not used to it. It's unfamiliar territory. So they want to destroy the silence, because it challenges them. You've all been great thinkers. You've all gone to school and university. You've been very successful thinking your way through the problems of life. But some things you can't solve through thinking. You solve through silence. A good example is of a woman who came on one of my retreats many years ago. And she was a senior social worker in Australia. And her job was one of the worst jobs you can possibly get. She had to assess families where the parents, one or both parents, were either in jail, or they were drug addicts, or they were abusive. And she was the one who had to decide whether to take their children away, to protect their children from the parents. And that is such a traumatic thing to do, no matter how abusive the parents are. Sometimes the children need them. They want their mother. And she had to make a decision to take the children away, with the mother screaming, to stop taking their babies away, but it's in the baby's best interest. It was a traumatic decision she had to make, day after day after day. Balancing the need of children from parents, but to protect the children from the parents. So that was her job. It was high stress. So when we started the retreat on a Friday evening, she never turned up till 11 o'clock, 11:30. Because she had so much work to do, she had to tie up all the loose ends before taking a week off. And of course, they'll never ever succeed in tying up all the loose ends. There's always more stuff to do. But she was smart enough, okay, I've done enough, that's it, I'm going on retreat, I need a rest. And she was a good meditator, so she just made her mind peaceful. She let go of everything, became silent. So she wasn't thinking about her problems, became silent. And after 3 or 4 days, she came to me in interview and said, amazing, I've been silent, I haven't been thinking about the problem for a couple of days. And as I was very silent in a deep meditation, I came out, all these answers came to me about how to solve some of the most difficult problems in my work. And they were such innovative solutions. So I got a piece of paper, wrote them down. When I go back to work in a couple of days, I will enact those ideas. And she was amazed at those solutions. She could never reach those solutions through thinking. Only in silence do these insights actually bubble up. And you can see what needs to be done. Because what happens in the human brain, that you put the information in, it just needs a while to go through the processes subconsciously until the answer pops out. If you keep interfering with it, you don't give the human brain enough time to find a solution. You keep interfering with it, with your thinking. And I know that so well now. In all the problems I have to solve, in just running monasteries, now I'm a CEM, Chief Executive Monk. Now, if I have a problem, I put all the information in, then I forget about it. I'm silent. Only when it's silent can you hear the answers. Only when you're not talking can you hear the speech of others. I remember I wrote about this in one of my books, an example of one of many. I went past the kitchen in our monastery just before dark, just before our monks' lunch. And on that day there were 7 Thai women making the lunch for the monks. And as I looked through the window, I saw all 7 of those women, and there were only 7 in the kitchen, all 7 of those women with their mouth open talking. And I did a little bit of math. If there were 7 people talking, and only 7 people in that room, who's left to do the listening? No one was left to do the listening. They were all doing the talking. What a waste of time that talking was. If we are talking, we need a listener. Sometimes the world is talking to you, telling you the answers, telling you the truth. We're so busy talking inside, thinking, we can't listen to find the truth of things. That's really important for your physical health. Because a lot of time the body is telling you that it's sick, it needs a rest, it needs some exercise, it needs a glass of water. But a lot of times we're thinking so much, we can't hear the body tell us what it needs. I recall reading a very influential book on heart attacks. And the author, who was a cardiologist, said all these people who have these sudden heart attacks which kill them, or which just hospitalize them, they think that the heart attack just comes out of nowhere. He said it doesn't. Now your heart gives you many warnings before the big one comes. But the problem is we're not aware because we're too busy thinking instead of listening to our body. And because we're too busy thinking instead of listening, we miss all those warning signs. And then when the big one comes, then that's where we find out this was a problem. So be able to listen to our body, to feel it. How many of you in a marriage think that your husband or your wife doesn't listen to you? You pull your hands up. It's so common. Because one person is talking, the other person is thinking. What does he want? What's he on about? Can he know about time? You're not listening to him, you're thinking all the time. Same the other way around. So at the very least, learn how to be silent. So when someone's talking to you, you're silent inside. And it's amazing how much information you can absorb when the other person is silent. Now, I had natural abilities of silence. That's why I've always did well at school and university. When the teacher was giving a lecture, I wasn't thinking about the girlfriend I was going out with that evening. I wasn't thinking about the soccer match on Saturday. I was silent. So I could absorb all of the teachings. It wasn't a photographic memory. It's because I was silent and mindful. What was said went right in, and I could record it very easily. So just be able to absorb information. If you're thinking, you're like a wet sponge. You can't soak up much water. If you're silent, you're like a dry sponge. You can soak up so much. So that's the importance of silence. Now, the reason I give the importance of silence is because most of us give too much importance to thinking. We have the idea that we solve problems by thinking about them. We think that, we assume that we'll find out the Dhamma by thinking about it. We don't. Silence is not only golden, beautiful, happy, profound, it's also where solutions come from silence. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but it's in my mind because we were talking about this in that recent seminar I went to. I told you about it on last Wednesday, Australian Institute of Physics. We're talking about a fellow Josephson, who was a Nobel Prize winner, also from Cambridge, and he got his Nobel Prize for the insight which came after meditation, when his mind was silent. You got a Nobel Prize out of that. It's amazing just what you can do, and the understanding the insights which come in silence. So if you're going to get the insights of the Dhamma, you have to be silent. You can't be thinking. Because thinking is always old stuff. I'll now give the demonstration. Here we go, sister. What is this? Can anyone tell me what this is? Thermos. What else? What else can you tell me about this? Black, hot. What else can you tell me? What else? Glass, what else? Now when I ask you, you always give it names. Thermos, black, cylinder, whatever. That's what thinking does. Is that all this is? Just a thermos? What we usually do to try and understand something, we give it a name. Thermos, finished, we don't look any deeper. When I press it, what else is it? Thermos, grey, flask, plastic. Those are just names. They don't describe what this really is. It's much, much, much more than that. Insight is what happens when you run out of names. And only then can you start seeing it in a way you've never seen it before. The names are old ideas. If you want to be creative, especially in work or in life, if you want to see things you've never seen before, run out of names, and then you can see this in ways you've never seen before. That is insight. So you never get understanding through thinking. Thinking is just what you've been taught at school. Who is this? Ajahn Brahm. That's not who I am, that's just my name. Monk. Is that who I am? I remember, just to give you an idea of how difficult it is to pin somebody down, to know who they are. One of the things I have to do as a monk, as a forest monk, I have to help work in monastery. Just because I'm senior doesn't mean that I don't join in with all the other monks when they do work. I always try and help when they're mixing the concrete to do any buildings or push wheelbarrows. And I really enjoy doing that. The other monks say how wonderful it is. Doesn't matter how famous and senior you are, you also help other people doing the dirty work. And one day, I was busy helping people helping the other monks mix concrete to do a building. And if any of you have seen concrete workers, or mix concrete yourself, you get splashed all over the face and all over your robes with the great cement. You really look a mess. So I looked all messy and dirty, and I was walking back to have a shower and get changed before dana. And as I was walking to the shower, a Sri Lankan woman came up to me. And she was obviously a very high-class, wealthy Sri Lankan, because she was dressed in an expensive sari, and she had all these bangles on her arms. And from a distance, I thought she was an ice cream truck coming. I think you know what I mean. And when she came up to me, she said, I am looking for Ajahn Brahm. Do you know where Ajahn Brahm is? Thinking very quickly, I said, if you go into the hall over there, he'll probably be there in about 15 minutes. So I quickly had a shower, got changed, went to the hall, and I talked to her for about half an hour. She had some questions on meditation and Dhamma. At the end of those questions, she said, I have to leave now, but that was very inspiring. You were a very, very good monk. This is a very beautiful monastery. But if you don't mind me saying this, on the way here, once, and he was very badly dressed. It's not right that a monk should look so dirty and so strong. She never realised it was me. And because I have to be truthful, I can't lie. I said, "Oh, I'm very sorry, madam. I will talk to him later about that." Well, of course, you did talk to yourself, so I wasn't there. So who is Ajahn Brahm? The dirty cement worker? Or the inspiring teacher? Does anyone else try and put you in a box? And that's not who you are. This is when thinking is always labels, putting people into a box and putting things into a box. And this is one of the reasons why we have so many misunderstandings. Silence is something different. Silence, you can know things beyond the names. So after a while in meditation, you have the insight that silence is more valuable than thinking. And you know that silence is what happens when the thinking stops. And even in your ordinary life, there are always gaps between your thoughts. We never noticed them before. Just like if you come into a room, you see the people in the room, you see the objects in the room, the Buddha statue, the camera, the carvings on the wall. But all you need to do is to change your perception and notice the space between the people in this room. To see the space between the walls. You know there's more space in this hall than there are things. We don't notice that. We just notice the people, the Maha, the Buddha, the windows, the chandeliers. We forget to notice what's between those things. In the same way, when you are meditating, when you have thinking, can you see the space between your thoughts? When one thought is finished, and another one has yet to arise. If you can, you've understood silence. But when you notice it, you begin to notice it more and more and more. And silence will grow on you. It is far more delightful, far more beneficial than thoughts. So you become someone who can abide in silence, not because you force the mind, but because you recognize silence. The mind loves it, stays there. And it means that when someone is talking to you, you can really listen for a change. Keep the mind silent, not react. When you're meditating, you can listen to the Buddha preaching to you. The Dhamma. You don't think about it. You stop the mind and listen. Not talking back with your thinking to the world. It's a training, but a training we don't do by willpower. We do it by wisdom power. Understanding, getting really familiar and at ease with the silence in our mind. Now I spent a lot of time on that because that is always the biggest hindrance for a person. Thinking in the meditation. And if you can overcome that hindrance through wisdom power, not willpower, you will find that you will be able to have some wonderful meditations. You have the noise. Now, Ajahn Brahm used to tell us, it's not the noise disturbs you, it's you who disturbs the noise. What he meant by that is when we're thinking, why don't they turn the volume down? We're meditating. Can't we ask the monks to chant somewhere else? Now that is more noisy than the chanting. You find the chanting finishes, but the noise inside your mind goes on and on and on and on. That's what we mean by the biggest noise in the whole world. It's not the dog barking. It's not someone slamming the doors. It's not people talking. It's not the mobile phone going off. That's not the noise. The real noise is, are people stupid? Don't they know we're meditating? Can't they turn off their mobile phone? I'm going to complain to the management. I'm going to find out whose mobile phone that was, and I'm going to throw it in the fountain in the courtyard. I'm going to get their name. I'm going to make sure they're never allowed to come on a retreat ever again. I'm going to blacklist them. The mobile phone stopped ringing a long time ago. But the thoughts in the mind, that is the noise. So when we have insight, we can meditate anywhere, in the middle of a noisy street. And dogs are barking all around us. When other people are making so much noise, our mind is still and silent. That is what we mean by insight. So that is insight in how to meditate. You find it's the way you react. The way you react to disturbances, that is the problem. Now, another way of learning how not to react to things like sounds or feelings in the body or anything else is what I call the simile of the television set. I have to use similes, which you don't find in the Buddhist teachings. There never were TV sets in the time of the Buddha. So you have to use modern similes for modern people. The next time you watch your TV at home, please notice that when you first turn the television on, you can see beyond the screen. You can see what's to the left, to the right, above and below. You can even see the edges of the screen. But after a few seconds, your field of perception, your mind, actually fits into the screen. And you cannot see the edges. You cannot see what's to the left or the right. That is the way that focusing works. Your field of perception fits neatly into the screen. Which is also why when you go traveling and you see these tiny screens on the back of the seat in front of you, you think it's so small. If you really want to enjoy the movie or the documentary, you have to have a big screen. See if you can notice the next time you go traveling, there's a small screen in front of you on the aircraft. Notice that once you turn that on, your mind focuses, and the experience of the movie or the documentary is exactly the same as if you saw one of these big widescreen TVs at home. It doesn't matter the real size of the TV screen. Your mind adjusts to fit into it perfectly. Which means that these big plasma screen TVs are a total waste of money. The only time you realise how big they are is when they're not turned on. When they're turned on, the experience is exactly the same as if it was a tiny screen. Check it out. Because what happens is when we focus on something, everything to the left and right, above and below, vanishes. So you're trying to focus in the present moment, trying to maybe watching your breath when it comes up, and all these sounds on the outside, people getting up and going away. How do you deal with that? You deal with that by just keeping whatever's in the center, keep it in the center. Say you are observing your breathing, breathing in, breathing out. All the sounds, the aches and pains, they're not in the center of your screen of attention. They're left or right, above and below, but don't center on them. If you really worry about the person who is making a noise, they actually become the center of your screen and the breath falls off. If you keep the breath in the center, all this other stuff, you can hear them, they're over here somewhere. After a little while, they fall off the screen of your attention. You literally can't hear them anymore. Whatever you keep in the middle, that remains. What's on the edges vanishes. just like the simile of the TV screen. It's a wonderful way of overcoming distractions, just like the sound outside, or like heat or cold in the body. That's in the body, don't focus on that. Focus on the present moment, maybe it's the breath you're focusing on. And after a while, everything else falls away. I learned how to do that when I was in Thailand as a monk, 40 years ago, in the days before mosquito repellent, when we didn't have mosquito sleeves, when we didn't have these coils of mosquito repellent. And in those days, I don't know why, my master Ajahn Brahm, if he did this these days, he would be taken to Hague in the court of human rights abuse. Because we had to sit meditation for 2 hours between 6 and 8 p.m. under the trees in the jungle. And that was the time the mosquitoes came out for dinner. And look at you, look at me. We have bald head, bald shoulders, no sleeves. We literally got more seats at the dinner table for the mosquitoes. Not only that, I was Westerner. And absolutely true that I went to some villages in the northeast and I was the first white man they'd ever seen, ever. Because the Western people never gone to that part of Thailand. Now, tourists never went out, there was nothing to see. It was really dull and boring. No great mountains, no waterfalls. So sometimes I was the first white person, let alone a white monk. I remember going on arms round in the village, and I was the first white man I'd ever seen. You know they're supposed to put the rice into the bowl? They weren't putting the rice, they were looking at me, and the rice was falling outside. The dogs were very happy. They got lots to eat that day. But mosquitoes, this was the first time they had Western food. So they all came onto the Western monks. And it was so irritating. There was about 60 or 70 mosquitoes on you at a time. Honestly, no exaggeration. And you couldn't swap them because Ajahn Brahm was over there. And you couldn't run away because all the Thai monks were there, you felt really terrible. But the way I overcame that, I focused on my breathing. That was the center. The mosquito bites were over here somewhere. I wasn't focusing on the mosquito bites, I was focusing on the breathing. Until after a very short time, what was on the edges of the screen vanished. I just couldn't feel my arm anymore or my head. All I could feel was my breathing. And I did that because I had to. The alternative was just too unbearable. But at least I learned how to focus. By not worrying about what's on the edges, just keeping at peace with what's in the center. That's called focusing. Once you learn how to do that, it's so easy when you're at work. People can be noisy all around you, you can just focus on the computer screen and that's all you have. You can focus on what you're doing in the present moment, what you can have to do afterwards, what happened earlier, falls off your screen. So you can really put your whole attention on the one thing. What's in front of you right now is important. As I said the very first day, the Emperor's 3 questions. Now the most important time, whatever's in front of you is the most important. What's on the edges then vanishes. And that's a great way of learning how to overcome the obstacles, which we have in meditation. But some of you, with all of this nice, skillful means, still you think, and you can't get out of thinking. And the reason is it literally does suck you in to the thoughts. And a lovely simile for you to understand what's going on, again, is watching a TV. How many of you have seen your husbands watching the soccer in England? And he's sitting here in KL watching the TV of some Manchester United play Liverpool or something. And he shouts at the TV set, "Pass the ball! Shoot! You stupid referee!" Can the people in Manchester hear your husband when he shouts at the TV? There's probably a replay anyway. It's already happened. But why does he shout at the TV? Because he gets sucked in. He believes he's actually there at Old Trafford, in the stands, watching it live. Don't laugh at your husband when you're watching a movie. Behind you, there's a monster behind you. Go on, kiss her, kiss her, kiss her. You really think that you're right in the movie, don't you? Because that is the skill of the movie makers, to draw you right into the movie, so you get emotionally involved. It's like you're right there. I love telling people two stories. I remember when I was a student, with my friends, we took our girlfriends all together, 3 or 4 guys and their girlfriends, took them to see the movie West Side Story, a long time ago. And did you know that story? It was, in the end, it was Tony and Maria. Tony was Italian, Maria was Puerto Rican. And culturally they were so separate, and their communities did not want them to go out together. They fell in love. It was a love that was doomed from the start. And something happened. I think Maria's brother was trying to kill Tony because he killed somebody else, and her movies, there's always some violence in them. But then what happened in the end was Maria was trying to warn Tony that he was in danger. And finally found Tony. He was under a lamppost in the dark, wet New York night. He shouted out, "Tony, Tony, be careful!" Bang! As a revolver went off, and Tony got hit. And Maria ran towards him and embraced him. He was dying. I don't know how this happened, but somewhere in the middle of the night in Brooklyn, New York, there was an orchestra. And instead of ringing for an ambulance, they started singing. There's a place for love, somewhere a place for us. And all our girlfriends started crying and weeping. And all the boys, we were laughing. It's only a movie, what are you crying for? In another half an hour, they replay the movie, they get reincarnated again. What's the problem? But in the movie, the girls got totally sucked into it. And it was so sad. And that's the trick of a movie, to actually to draw you in, as if you're standing right next to Tony Maria, as if it's your own sister, your own best friend. That makes it sad. That is the problem with your thinking. It sucks you in. It draws you into fantasies where you're always the hero. Where you always win. In real life, you lose many times. But in the world of fantasies, you can always make it so you're always the winner. You always win the Olympic Games. You score the winning goal in the FA Cup final. That you are the best lover, the most beautiful girl in the whole of KL in your fantasies. In real life, that's not the case. But it draws you in and sucks you in. That is the problem with thinking. So in order, if you get sort of a fantasy or an obsessive train of thought, in order to break that, just like in watching a movie, you remember that movie is on the screen out there, and you're sitting in a seat or in an armchair at home. There's a distance between you and the screen. Once you put a distance between you and your thoughts, the observer and the thoughts put some space between you. And it's very easy not to get sucked in. to get some objectivity, and you can let go of the thoughts very easily. So you get some thoughts, don't take them as you're on the side of them. Imagine an observer distant from your thoughts. When you put some space between you and the thinking, well, there's only thoughts, it's only rubbish. And you, the observer, are not the thoughts. The thoughts are not the observer. Giving that space makes it so easy to drop the thinking. But when you're right inside of it, like being inside the TV when you're watching a football match, and you do stupid things like, referee, that was a foul, blow your whistle, even though he can't hear you. So that's a beautiful way of getting the inside. Why we get sucked into thinking, why we can't stop, why we can spend a whole hour when we're supposed to be meditating, thinking. So those are brilliant ways of getting us some silence. And just getting into silence. Now, everything else is usually easy after that. Learning just how to enjoy it. Because once there's silence, all this energy, which I was saying about how your mind just wastes energy thinking and reacting to things, that's all gone. Now your mindfulness can get some energy. You wake up. And what you see becomes, you see much more. You can see how everything works. It's like turning the lights off in the room in the morning. You can actually see what everything is so you don't fall and stumble over stuff. This is what happens when you go past the thinking and you are silent. Your mind is at least still to that amount. You start to wake up and your mindfulness is very, very strong. To get insight, you have to have strong awareness. Otherwise, you can only see superficial stuff. So when the mind gets very still, it gets very strong. Not only can it still see much more, just one breath. You go outside, you look at a flower. Wow, it's amazing the stuff going on there. You can't see that when you're dark. When the mind wakes up, it becomes more powerful. Because it's more powerful, it can see much more. The insights get very, very strong. But the wonderful thing about this, with insight always comes happiness. What you see, what you hear, the sound of the bell. It's incredibly deep, the ringing of a bell. And sometimes after a deep meditation, you hear anything like a bell. Wow! So many different little pitches and sounds which make up just one toll of a bell. You literally hear much more, hear much deeper. And when you feel, there's a stage in the meditation, your body feels like it's crawling with ants. It's very pleasant because everything is alive. You can actually feel things in the body which you don't usually notice because you're really awake. And that's usually just before the body vanishes. Your mindfulness has become so strong, everything is amplified. If you want to have insight, you have to have a mind as powerful as that. And as the mind gets more powerful, it sees more and more deeper problems. In the Brickfields Sutra, it said 2 of the deeper problems in meditation are fear and excitement. What happens when you really start getting deep in meditation? It's either, wow, this is amazing. You disturb your meditation. That's the wow response. That's the fear response. It's a bit too much for me. Please remember this meditation. Number 1, you are perfectly safe. Nothing to fear. Ajahn Brahm is here. Sometimes people say, when you meditate very deeply, is there any danger at all? And I always like saying there is one danger. One real danger in meditating so deeply you get jhanas. And that danger is, if you get too many jhanas, you might end up losing all your hair. You want to be now. jhanas. So that's only danger, but everything else perfectly healthy. So much so, there's all these stories. The story from the sutras of this one monk. He was meditating so deeply in the forest, he was in a jhana. And a couple of villagers came by, and they thought the venerable was dead. They thought, what are we going to do? The monk has died. He hadn't died, he was just in jhana, that's all. They said, well, no, we can't let him be eaten by the jungle animals. We better cremate him. So they got some wood, they were in the forest, quickly got some wood, put the venerable on top, and lit the fire. And then they went off to do their business. They can't wait around all day. So there was a poor monk, just in jhana, was cremated. So they thought. Because the next morning, he appeared in the village on unshrouded. Not even his robe was burnt. The Buddha said that's what happens when you get into deep meditation. So if you get into a jhana and your relations think you're dead, and they put you in a box and take you to the crematorium, and they put you in the oven, and then afterwards when you come out of meditation, the fellow in the crematorium opens the oven and says, "Hi, it's me again." You don't get burnt. Weird, isn't it? There's some really strange stuff which happens when you get into these deep meditations, but you don't have to be afraid. In fact, the opposite is true. You get so many benefits, health benefits even. Cancers zapped away. High blood pressure. You feel incredibly healthy after deep meditation. That's what you feel. So nothing to be afraid of. Everything to gain. So don't be afraid. And number two, excitement. But you got so close, and then you start getting excited. Oh, I'm going to get jhanas. You blow it again. Get excited afterwards. Not beforehand, because you have to be still, so peaceful, and then you get these great results. So, after you get all the insights into the problems and obstacles of meditation, and you realize the biggest obstacle is wanting something, every time you want something, you disturb the mind. You see that? Every time you are content, beautiful word, contentment. Contented, easily satisfied. Then you find you become peaceful and still. And we find that that is the path to deep meditation. Not wanting anything. Being content, peaceful, happy, and that builds, and builds, and builds. Contentment upon contentment upon contentment. You don't have to get everything done to be content. You don't have to have a healthy body to be at peace. You're just content with it. This is as good as it gets. I'm not going to try and change anything now. You'll find that leads to deep meditation. And the insight comes up afterwards. If I can be content with my mind, and this is what happens, I can be content with my husband as well. He's not the best. He's not the worst, he's average. So you're content with the person you're sharing your life with. You may not be the best, you're not the worst. You're content with yourself. So all your lack of self-esteem, or all your pride and ego, all disappears. Replaced by contentment. You have to go to work every morning. Be content with that, that's what you have to do. You're saying, okay, I'll become a monk, I don't have to go to work. Yeah, look at me, I have to go to work every day. I don't get a weekend off. On the weekends, that's when I really work hard. Public holidays, I hate public holidays. When you have public holidays, Waisak or Harry Rye or whatever, public holidays like Christmas, New Year's, that's when more people come to the temple than ever. They really make me work hard on public holidays. But I'm content. Because what's the point of complaining? No one listens, so you might as well just be content with it. And that is the way to get deep meditation. That's the way to have happiness in life. So then, after to emerge from the jhana. What's the point of these deep meditations? The point of the deep meditations is once you emerge from these deep meditations, your mind is so powerful. What I call superpower mindfulness. If you think you're aware now, after mindfulness your mind is so sharp, you can see so many different things. Everything is like super illuminated. So what do? You look at your mind. Now you can really see it. It's like someone with a powerful microscope goes and looks and sees the nature of the human cell. And they can see so much more with superpower mindfulness, like a superpower microscope. Or like the Hubble Space Telescope. So powerful you can see to the ends of the universe. With superpower mindfulness, that's what you can do, see to the end of this whole big universe. Your mind is so strong and powerful. That's what it actually feels like. It's not something you do anything. But then you focus on the nature of existence. Suffering, what is it? Dukkha. Because you just had one of the most amazing, blissful experiences of your life. Why? Why are the jhanas or deep meditations so blissful? The reason is because a whole heap of suffering has vanished temporarily. That's why the jhanas are the best happiness you've ever had. What's vanished? First of all, your body and the five senses. Now being able to hear and see and feel, that's just such an irritation. At least I've got eyelids, I can actually close them so I don't see anything. I wish I had earlids. I can close my earlids so I can hear anything. Even when I go travelling, I have these little earplugs. They only keep some of the sound away. Even with earplugs, you can still hear a lot of noise. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you just turn off the hearing, flick a switch so you can be silent? When your wife, flip the switch. When the boss is getting angry, flick the switch so you can't hear anything. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have silence whenever you want it? Wow. Unfortunately, you don't have that. This is always at you. Bodily feelings. Just have a look around and see how many people can be still. They're always scratching something, moving something. Putting your hand over your mouth, putting your thing down, scratching your thighs. Have a look around, see how many people move. Why do they do that? Because the body is always irritating. There's always something to scratch, something to sneeze, something to cough. You've got to put water in your mouth, now you've got to take it out of your body. Endless. But in these jhanas, you don't feel the body at all. So free. The first insight which people get once they've experienced jhanas, they're never afraid of death anymore. What is death anyway? Just bye-bye body, bye-bye five senses. You've experienced in meditation what it's like. I have no body, no five senses. Woohoo! Free! If you ever read about people who have near-death experiences, who float out of their body and come back again, they always say how wonderful it is to be free of their body. It's the most peaceful, happiest time in their life. The story I love repeating was I saw this on a BBC documentary of this elderly English woman who died on the operating table. And she was sick for a long time. She floated out of her body. She was having the time of her life. She was so happy, so peaceful, being free of this old body. And she met the Spirit. And the Spirit said, I'm sorry, it is not your time to die. You have to go back. And she said, go back? No way. But you have to. But I don't want to. But you must. I'm not going. And they had an argument on the spiritual plane. She was not going to go back to this old wrecked body, but the Spirit said she had to. And it finished according to this woman's memory. This Spirit somehow got hold of her and threw her back into her body on the operating table. And she came to again. And when she was doing the interview, when she got to this point in the interview, her face looked screwed up with utter anger and revenge. She said, when I die next time, when I really die, the first thing I'm going to do is find that Holy Spirit, and you won't believe what I'm going to do to him. I'm going to beat him up, I'm going to scold him. What he did to me is unforgivable. What was really funny about that was that was just a great expression of how beautiful it is today. How free it is. You've got an old body. My body this is my 64th year now. It's falling apart. When you get fat, it's not fat, it's just a big heart. You get this ache and that pain, all this light when you get old. You can't hear well. You have to wear glasses to see. Walking, you can't run like you used to. Soon all my hands will start shaking. Everything gets weak when you get old except for one part. There's one part of your body which gets stronger the older you get. And that is your mouth. Old people, they can talk for hours and hours and hours and hours. They can't hear, they can't see, but they shouldn't talk. It's true, isn't it? But when you actually experience what it's like to say goodbye to your five senses, your body in deep meditation is just such bliss. The other thing which goes later on in meditation, in the jhanas, in second jhana, is your will. Having to make choices, having to do things. And that's one of the reasons why people get so stressed out in today's world. Too many choices, which really is a burden for our mind. Then you go to the supermarket. In the old days, there's only one type of milk. Now, how many types of milk? Low-fat milk, cholesterol-free milk, full cream milk, no cream milk. I don't know how many types of milk there are, 1%, 5%, oh Jesus. It's so hard to make choices. It reminds me of this refugee from a very poor country who came to Perth. Went to the supermarket for the first time. And he went into the supermarket, he saw instant mashed potatoes. Just add water, boiling water, and this powder, and you get mashed potatoes. He said, wow. Now in my country we had to grow the potatoes in the field, harvest them, peel them, boil them, smash them, and then we get mashed potatoes. But in Australia, just add water. He went to another aisle, instant milk powder. You just add water to the milk powder, stir it up, you get milk. He said, wow, in the old country we had to find a cow and pull the udder to get milk. It's amazing in the West. And he went to another aisle, he couldn't believe it. Baby powder. In the old country we I think you understand that. Just add water, you get a baby. But we have so much choice, and that's a lot of pain sometimes. That's why it's nice when somebody else makes the decisions for us. What happens in deep meditation? You can't make any choices anymore, you're totally still. And this thing will, which you understand as your best friend, the one which makes things happen for you, fine. That is actually your biggest enemy. Craving, will, is a cause of suffering, said the Buddha. When the craving, when the will vanishes, wow, now you are happy. You see some incredible insights, which you cannot know without the deep stillnesses. The reasons why, without stillness, You just can't get insight, not the deep insights. Only when things vanish can you know what they are. And I'm going to be silent now. Isn't it strange? As a monk, I'm the one who blesses marriages, even though I've never been married. I give advice to women about how to bring up kids when I never had a child myself. I spent a whole hour and 5 minutes talking about silence instead of being silent. Oh, you big hypocrite, Ajahn Brahm. So I'll finish off for now, and we'll have some questions later on. But now I think it's refreshment time, isn't it? Yeah, it is break time. So we have a break for half an hour, then we do some meditation, and then any questions, especially about insight, on pieces of paper, and they will be answered between 10:30 and 11:30. So that's a little talk on insight, and silence, and taking away the value from thinking, putting it out to silence, noticing the space between your thoughts, and how when you get into deep meditation and mindfulness gets strong, you can see incredible things, and you get really big insights which make your mind so easy. Okay?